YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. In today's video, we're going to quickly recap, give you my takeaways from that Super Bowl. Kansas City Chiefs are Super Bowl champions. They take down the Philadelphia Eagles in an absolute thriller. So we'll quickly recap that, but we're on to the offseason. We've kind of already been in offseason mode. We have a bunch of content on the channel covering it, and we'll definitely have more to come. Really excited. I always love this time of year with trades, free agency, the draft. We have you covered. So like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Follow us on Twitter. Twitter is where we talk about everything first, the news and everything else. So make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our Discord is open for everyone now. There's a link pinned in the comments for that, as well as that Twitter and our sponsors. Twitter subscribers get some bonus content as well. Anything you're looking for, links pinned in the comments. But yeah, an absolutely entertaining game, to say the least. 38-35, the Chiefs pull it off. It sort of went how I thought it would. I thought it would be a shootout, a little bit more of a shootout than I thought. I did have the Chiefs winning, and they pull out a squeaker that could have went either way. Obviously, it looked like the Eagles had control for this game for the most part. But starting from the beginning, I mean, the Eagles go down there and score with ease, pretty easily. And the Chiefs, it felt like, scored even easier. It felt like Kelsey was a problem, which wasn't really a surprise. He was going to be a problem. And so it's tied up. Chiefs get the ball back, and I think that second possession for the Chiefs when they get the ball back, 7-7, I think that was a key moment in this game. I mean, it didn't really end up, I mean, you could still say it changed the game, but the Chiefs ended up winning, so it's not like it ended up costing them or anything. But that second possession, they were moving the ball even easier, it felt like, than the first possession, which they didn't think was possible. And then they run a little bit of a screen to Jerick McKinnon, which it was kind of open out there. It was him versus Slay. This was a second down play. Him versus Slay, one-on-one. McKinnon pretty good in the open field. Usually if he beats him, he might be gone, or he gets at least the first down, probably a lot, very likely a lot more. And Slay makes a pretty big time, good open field, one-on-one open field tackle. And that forced third and short. Then Mahomes kind of tripped up a bit. Pass rusher dove at him, obviously. And they were unable to convert on third. So going back to that, I think that Slay tackle was big for them. And then the Chiefs, surprisingly, I thought they're going to go for it. Having that momentum and how easily they moved the ball, it felt like one more play with 3 yards to go, the way we moved the ball, just running normal plays, like we should do that and get it. So I was very surprised. But they did want to take the lead, and they go to kick a 42-yard field goal, and they miss it. So a drive what felt like was absolutely dominant ended with 0. So surprising from the Chiefs, and they could have got some momentum and scored there. And the next possession, they end up having a brutal offsides that resulted in a first, and then Hurts throws that bomb to A.J. Brown, which it was a good enough throw where it was in the area. It did hang up there a little bit. I thought McDuffie could have made a play on the ball, and he not only lost his balance, but he misjudged it. A.J. Brown, fantastic player, fantastic contested catcher, or I should say tracker, more like it, made a phenomenal play there. I thought Devontae Smith was making some big plays up into that point. So the Eagles were in control at that point, and it felt like they were putting together a drive where they were not only going to extend their lead, but they were draining clock. And we talked about that's how the Eagles were going to win the game, like draining clock and continue to score. They get a false start on Sumalo on that third and inches play, which that sneak is just so dominant. Like how could you how does nobody stop it? It's just too easy for the Eagles. They might have to put that rule back in place where the offensive linemen or people can't push the ball carrier, which was a thing. They might have to put that back in play. I'm not saying they should or should not, but I'm saying maybe they think about it just because how dominant the Eagles are at it, but a little off topic. So the false start backs them up, and then Hurts going to run a keeper, obviously. It's a kind of a prime play for them in that situation, and I think he's just so used to it kind of being open, that the first read, the lane being open, hole, I should say. Nick Bolton, who I thought Nick Bolton played a phenomenal game. Fantastic young linebacker for the Chiefs. He filled that gap and forced Hurts off track, but then he fumbled on his own, which I did not expect to see. That was kind of somewhat of a fluky thing. He did put the ball, I'm trying to think, I think he put the ball on the ground 9 times this year. I think that's an accurate number. And then he only lost 2. For a running quarterback, that's not, it's only losing 2 is fantastic, but did put the ball on the ground 9 times. So it's not like he doesn't fumble. but it was somewhat of a fluky thing there. Was not expecting to happen. It shouldn't happen in the Super Bowl. Nick Bolton scoops it and scores it. He almost had 2 scoop and scores, but one got reversed, which I agree with that call as well. Throughout this game, I pretty much agreed with the calls, actually, and we'll get to that last call, but they reversed 2 calls, which if you follow us on Twitter, I thought those were kind of straightforward. The first one, Smith did not control, possess that ball, and then the ball hit the ground and came loose, and there's people that on Twitter, kind of the thing lately. People say, I don't know what a catch is anymore. I don't know if those people are, saying what everyone else is saying, or if there's not the smartest people. If you don't know if that's not a catch or not, in my opinion, I don't know then. I think that's like a you problem. I don't know if that's a league problem, because you always had to control the ball. And then when you go to the ground, the ball, of course, cannot hit the ground. And they've kind of changed something recently, recent years, where the ball can actually hit the ground, but if it comes loose, then you're no-go. And all those things happened. He lost kind of control of the ball, was reestablishing, ball hits the ground, clearly comes loose, slides on the ground. I mean, it is pretty straightforward. So the league, I should say, got that one right. And then there was that fumble, scoop, and score. Bolton had a second one. But I did think that everything happened too quick. It was pretty damn close, very close. And you don't actually need a third step. Sometimes the rule experts come in and say you need a third step. You kind of need a third act. And he kind of caught it and did start to turn his body upfield. But it just happened so fast. Like the possession, trying to get the feet down, getting himself established. I thought it happened too quick, where the catch wasn't official. Maybe that's why the ball kind of came out. So I agree with that call. And during the year, regular season for the most part, they kind of let those ones stand because it's like too close, so we'll go with the call on the field. And I don't like that. I think there's always enough evidence to me, unless it's a pile of guys and you cannot see the ball. That's the only time. So that one right there, I think the refs did a fantastic job. Like, they didn't blow the whistle because it might have been a fumble. They let them, go score, because if they blow the whistle, they can't give the Chiefs the proper touchdown. So that was great, letting the boys play. And then actually reversing a very, very close call, because it was very likely the right call. Let's make the right call, So I actually love that. I think the officials did a great job there. And then Goddard had a tough one, which was reviewed for quite a bit. Actually live, I thought, or not live, I mean watching the game live, but watching the replay live, I didn't think he got that, but I guess it was pretty close. But I think people's argument was his toe stayed down and he stepped, but at that point he had one hand on the ball, and then it was in between. The ball was in between his hand and his face mask, but then right when he lifted that foot up, I thought I saw the ball turn a little bit, so I don't know if that's really possession. So if that was on me, I probably would have said incomplete, but I'm not going to complain about that one at all. It was a very tough one. I thought the officials did a pretty good job. Up until this point, they missed one pass interference maybe earlier in the game. That's really about it. They're letting both teams hold. But there really wasn't any, like, every game I watched, it's like, oh my God, the holding. How did they not call it? I didn't really see any of that. Like, there's always holding, but so I do think it's a little weird. There's 0 holding calls, but it was even on both sides there. So I like that. I can't really complain, about that. So kind of getting off track a little bit. We'll get to that last call, but kind of getting back into the game. Yeah, that fumble by Hurts was pretty damn tough. And that was a big moment in this game. I think people were talking about that a lot. I think the Chiefs' second possession, them getting 0 points when it was a dominant drive, actually, was something as well. And credit to Slay on the open field tackle. And then, it still felt like the Eagles somewhat had control. It kind of started looking like the deferring option for the Chiefs. It was actually a good idea. I really like doing offense. No, it's going to be a shootout. Offensive teams, I like starting with the ball, because the Eagles, you kind of had to know they were going to go start with the score. I thought whoever started with the ball was going to go start with a score. I thought that was a pretty good bet there. Other good bets, we actually hit our parlay hit, which we had for Twitter subs. We had a Kelsey anytime touchdown, or first a Hurts anytime touchdown was right away. A Kelsey anytime touchdown right away. I mean, those are free. Mahomes over-under for passing touchdowns was only 1.5. I thought that was ridiculous. So I thought those 3 were guaranteed. I went a little bold with my other 2. I went with a Kelsey over yards, which was 79.5. I don't like basing things off one game, but last week people probably looked at he was just under that. But I thought the Eagles could struggle with really good tight ends. I thought Their linebackers or safeties weren't going to be able to handle him, and he's just dominant as it is. So I thought he would get over that, but I thought it'd be a little close. It was kind of close. He got over that. And then my crazy one was I was pretty confident, not super confident, but I was pretty confident with the Chiefs. And I was going to go Chiefs money line, but for that extra odds, I went alternate spread. I went with Chiefs -2.5. And I had them winning by 4, but I didn't want to do 3.5 or 3 because it's very realistic for any team, any given time, in an even matchup to lose by 3 points. So the 2.5 made a lot of sense to me. They win by 3. So we had all 5 of those in that parlay. So that was big time there. So, but yeah, I thought, and Goddard, speaking of Kelsey being dominant, I thought Goddard was dominant as well. Some crazy catches. But kind of going back to Hurts, that fumble was like, again, I keep saying it was brutal. It just can't happen in the Super Bowl. It's like one of those moments, like usually if like something like that happens, like is that guy made for the Super Bowl? If he lets that happen, that's kind of what you think, what you say. But I thought Hurts played a great game. I thought the converting 3rd and 4th downs. If it kept, the Chiefs gave up a lot of points, a lot of yards, but it kept feeling like they were making good plays, and they had them stopped, and they would go off sides, or they would give up a big third down or a 4th down. There was a 3rd and 16, 17 at one point, which was I think it was that Goddard play, which was a ridiculous throw by Jalen Hurts. And not just running too. I mean, he was fantastic running, but he had some tight window, accurate throws on the sideline where it's like, all right, that's just not a mistake. Like if that guy can make those throws, on 3rd down too. It's not like it's 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down, 4th down in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Like, okay, I think he's made for the moment. So I'm actually, even though that fumble was so surprising it can't happen, I'm actually more impressed with Hurts. Not that I was like, I don't want to say doubting the man, but you still, in the back of your mind, I think everyone probably, even if you didn't say it out loud, you probably in the back of your mind, you probably thought, it's maybe a little bit of a question. Is Hurts ready for this moment? It's a different game in the Super Bowl. Can he do it with the inexperience and maybe the past struggles of throwing, perhaps? And maybe some people think he's more of a runner than thrower. So people were probably thinking it. And then look at the Niners game, the NFC Championship game, which ended up being dominant. But passing-wise, Hurts actually struggled. He missed some simple throws. So you're running an NFC Championship game. What if he does that against the Chiefs? And it's a Super Bowl. It might got to be difficult for him there, but I think he proved otherwise. I think he proved he can do it, and he's kind of just getting going. I guess the question will be going forward. Well, I guess if they lose their coordinators, but losing the offensive coordinator Steichen, which sounds like he's expected to be hired by the Colts, how would that affect them? And usually these style offenses do kind of get figured out. Like teams, more and more tape comes out. Somebody figures something out. Then another team figures out like how to stop these offenses with the misdirection and, the QB keeping the ball quite a bit. So that does tend to happen. So the Eagles, talented roster, Hurts only getting better. They'll be back in contention, but some challenges, I suppose, there as well. Keep getting off topic, though, but there's a lot of good, interesting things I do want to talk about. But kind of going back into the game, I did kind of have a feeling the Chiefs would make it interesting in the second half. It was surprising to me that only 2 teams blew 10-plus point leads in NFL history, Super Bowl history, I should say. All the Super Bowls that have been played, it's been the Eagles here and the Falcons. I'm surprised that hasn't happened more, but the Chiefs were pretty much flawless in the second half offensively, but defense made some enough stops, I suppose, in the right moments. Mahomes was ridiculous on that leg at his longest run of the season. Juju started getting going, because. And I was actually saying that, like, you think he would get going a little bit more, kind of a big slot type of guy, kind of a mismatch type of guy, like Kelsey is. And with Kelsey getting going, them having focus on him, getting Juju going, like, got to happen. And he had some clutch plays. I don't know if they were clutch catches, really, because they were pretty routine, but he got open. He was reading correct coverage, finding the soft spots in the zones. So I thought that was big. Obviously, Pacheco was fantastic. We saw the Eagles defense have some hiccups here and there against physical running backs during the year, but it was really here and there. I mean, Dameon Pierce, maybe A.J. Dillon, if I'm remembering correctly, guys like that. So Pacheco being that guy, he did give him a little bit of a problem. I thought it was a credit to Pacheco. I thought it was a lot of Andy Reid and this offensive staff, like being very, very unpredictable when they were running the ball. Like there's so many teams in the NFL, like even good ones, like I could sit there and go, they're running the ball. I know they're running the ball. But I had no clue, like, with the Chiefs. So it's huge. I've been saying it for a year. Be unpredictable when it comes to calling plays. That is a very, very big key there. So that was big time. What could the Eagles were slipped up on defense, obviously. What could they have done? It's tough to say. I mean, they were mixing up coverages. They were mainly a cover one team this year, but then cover two, which is zone, obviously. But they would mix in some other coverages as well, which was funny because the Chiefs were mainly cover two, but then cover one. So they're pretty much the same, but a little bit flipped there. But yeah, they kind of stuck to their guns. Like, what else are you going to do? And they were mixing it up a little bit. It's just, against Kelsey, people say double him, but if he's in line, like you put two guys and a guy in line, lined up next to the, tackle, like I don't think you can put two guys. It's impossible to put, not impossible, but it's difficult to make that decision. And if he's in the slot, it's also the same thing. It's very, very, very difficult to put two guys on that. So when they're in man, it's Kelsey versus one guy that he's just a lot bigger than, and unless it's linebacker, but he's still a lot taller than, but at least they have the physicality, but he's just going to juke them out of their jock strap, which he did at one point. TJ Edwards was on the ground, which you expected to happen. So that's what happens if you're in man coverage. I thought actually we'd see a little bit more of CJ Gardner-Johnson on Kelsey, so maybe they could have done that. I don't know if it would have changed much, but maybe then when they were slowing him down, maybe he was on him. But if you're a man, that's what's going to happen. When I just explained, if you're in zone, he's just going to go in the linebacker zone. It's really not rocket science, But first, you have to have the talent of Travis Kelce and the brains, But at the same time, it's really not the hardest thing. So he kind of just tail off into the linebacker zones underneath the safeties, and when they're in zone, and those smart guys, that's the part that is a little more difficult, is on the fly reading zone or man, and I feel like I do a pretty good job at it, but while watching. But some of those guys, while moving on the field, sometimes it's difficult. Some guys never figure it out. A guy like Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, these guys can figure it out no problem. So I don't think the Eagles defense was called poorly, but at the same time, there was a couple touchdowns the Chiefs had towards the end, one to Kadarius Toney and one to Sky Moore, where it was kind of a breakdown in coverage, like a play. Obviously, a play. The coach did not have a player out there, so a player's job is supposed to be out there. But I guess you can say Gannon could have had him a little more prepared for the trickery. I don't know if it was that much. The play designs were pretty ridiculous by Andy Reid. I mean, he coached a ridiculous game against his former team. But yeah, I guess obviously that can't happen. So the Eagles defense kind of shut down there, kind of broke down, and there was a little too much hype on their defense coming into this. And that doesn't mean they're not a good defense. They've been a good defense pretty much all year. There were games down the stretch this season where it didn't feel like they were as good as early year, like some teams with physical backs were able to pound the ball. I mean, the Cowboys were probably the last good offense they played. They were probably the best offense they played all year. And last time they played them, they beat them with 40 points. I know Minshew was involved in that game, obviously, but they still allowed quite a bit. And I think people were getting a little too hyped, especially going against the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, just a different animal, Kelsey, in the Super Bowl. People were getting a little carried away, I thought, with the Eagles pass rush. And I don't know, I think they were basing it off of like what was happening recently, but they played Josh Johnson and then they played Daniel Jones before that. So, and then they dominated those games. Credit to them. They got the job done. But my point is, I'm surprised that people had that much confidence in the Eagles. Any defense against the Chiefs, Niners, Bengals. I mean, the Bengals defense did a pretty good job. I was telling people, there was a lot of people saying that, well, the Eagles have a better defense than the Bengals, so why can't the Eagles stop them? And I disagreed with that. I actually think at the end of the day, what is actual? Yeah, I think you have to say the 49ers have the best defense this year, but for pretty much, if you put the season together, I actually think at the end of the day, what went on in the most important moments at the end of the season, I thought the Cincinnati Bengals had the best defense. And I actually said that about Tennessee Titans last year. I thought, technically maybe they weren't the best defense. Maybe it was at the end of last year. Maybe it was the Niners, the Rams, the Bengals. But I actually thought, based on what I saw down the stretch in the playoffs, I thought, the Titans actually had the best defense. This year, I thought it was the Bengals. People are going to say Niners, and that's fair because they were for most of the season. But I actually thought the Bengals had the best defense. So the Chiefs, had that challenge against that defense last 2 weeks ago, and that prepared them. That tested them. I think the Chiefs being more tested, and that's not the Eagles' fault, but they're being more prepared, more tested than the Eagles, I think gave the Chiefs an advantage, and that's nobody's fault, really. AFC is just tougher, I think. So I thought that was a big piece of this game. But the Chiefs absolutely flawless in the end there. I mean, the plays, play calls, play designs, ridiculous. And we go back to say, when you play the Chiefs offense, it's so difficult because not only because they have the best player in football at quarterback and they got the best tight end of all time, and they have Andy Reid, Andy Reid kind of goes into it, but there's so much to account for. And when people say that, when I say that, I think most people think of the weapons, and that's part of it. But I actually think more of the different variety of plays, calls, styles. There's so much motion. Guys like almost faking the motion. We saw that on a Tony touchdown. It's just so much you have to watch and account for. It could be a dink and dunk play. It could be an underneath play. It can be whether it's a screen pass, whether it's a quick slant, whether it's that shuffle pass underneath, whether it's a run to a physical runner like Pacheco, whether it's Mahomes taking off, whether it's a deep ball because Mahomes has maybe the craziest arm in football, and then you have to account for all these weapons on top of it. It's just so difficult, and we saw that in this game. So I think credit goes to their talent for sure, the best player in football, Patrick Mahomes, but I think a big one goes to Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, and then Matt Nagy as well, who is in Mahomes' ear on the bench, on the sideline, when they're off the field, with the tablet. So, and he had that connection with Mahomes from back before he was even drafted, before they drafted him too. So I think those guys, and everyone's giving Andy Reid credit right now, as they should. So it's not like they deserve, he's not getting enough right now, but they deserve all of it, like those guys. So I think that was big. But then going to, which seems to be somewhat of a controversial thing, at the end of the game, the Eagles, they had the Chiefs stopped, and the Chiefs would have to kick a field goal, and the Eagles would have a decent amount of time left, and they were scoring pretty easily. And if they would have scored a touchdown, they would have won the game. If realistic to be confident, they would have scored. It wasn't a whole lot of time, and they would have had no timeouts, but or a field goal could have tied and put it over. You think at least they get a field goal, perhaps. But they do call the hold on James Bradbury on that play. And there's people, and there's always going to be those people that say bad call, rigged. There's people that I don't know if a lot of people were saying rigged. Some people were. I think it's just ridiculous. I actually think a lot of it's ridiculous. I agree with the call. Pretty simple. Why? He did hold him. And there were people, I thought it was funny on Twitter, people saying he didn't even hold him. And then you got, a tweet next to it. James Bradbury says he did hold, and you could see the interview too. So he did, he grabbed him twice actually, but there was obviously a worse one there. Number one, you're not allowed to hold. You're just not allowed to hold a receiver on a pass play, obviously. And then number two, he was going to get open wasn't for the hold. He still was open, obviously, with it. And then, a hold, just, you got to regain momentum. And then that overthrow was only, a couple steps, even if that, so it actually could have been a free, wide open touchdown pitch and catch type deal. So I think by not calling it, you're almost in a way stripping a touchdown from the Chiefs in a massive moment. But if it's so ticky-tacky or you can't tell, then I'm all for not calling it. But there's this clear grab two different times, and it affected the play. So right then and there, I'm thinking, okay, that's definitely the right call. But then people make the argument, which I understand the argument, why people say this, but they say, well, people are kind of pulling the consistent card, like all game they kind of let them play. They didn't call that all game. Why did they call it there? My argument to that is, well, first, the smaller part of it, did you see that being let go? Like the grab on a one-on-one where the receiver was going to have a step at least. He had a step even with the hold. So more than a step. Did you see that during the game? The answer is probably no. It probably happened, but probably no. But was there a moment where the hold prevented a touchdown, a massive touchdown, a wide open pitch and catch type play, no, that didn't exist. So if it happened earlier in the game, whether it was Chiefs or Eagles, if there was a hold and it was pretty clear it was a hold and it would have been a touchdown and they didn't call it and then they called it there, I'd have a problem too. That just wasn't the case. So I don't think we can use the consistency thing there. I think that you could argue they strip a touchdown from the Chiefs if they don't call that pretty much there. And they didn't end up getting a touchdown, but they played for the field goal, which was, I suppose, smart there. So that's kind of my take on that. I didn't know if there was any more other arguments to it and people trying to find a way. I thought it was the right call. It's a shame that it had to happen. Oh, that's the other thing too. I forgot one big point there. Other people were saying yeah, I think Emmanuel Sanders was I think he said it on live TV after too, but people on Twitter were saying it. A lot of people everywhere, like big name people, fans were saying it that you shouldn't, it was probably a hold, but you can't call that in that situation. I strongly disagree with that. Yeah, I think you got to stop yourself when you say it's a hold. It's probably a hold. It's a hold. I think you stop yourself there because if it is, then it is. But a bigger picture here, if you think it's a hold but you should be allowed to do it because it's late in the game, then everyone's going to be holding everyone because they know they never call stuff at the end of the game. It's going to be a disaster. So that can't be. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I think it's what Bradbury said. I did hold. I thought maybe they could let it slide. He was hoping that they would let it slide. That's probably what his thinking was. All right, he's got a step on me. I pretty much have to do something here. So let me see. It's the end of the game. Sometimes they don't call big things like that at the end of the game. So I guess you could pull the consistency thing there, throughout the whole year. Sometimes, I think most time they're going to call that one every time. Though clear grabs. It could have been a pitch and catch type touchdown. Did multiple steps on him even with the hold. The more I talk about, I was pretty firm on it the second it happened. You have to call it. It's a shame that's how a game's kind of going to end there, I suppose. Yeah, but is it because the Chiefs kind of won that play? They won on that play. To me. So I don't know. So I strongly disagree with people saying for whatever reason they come up with, whether it's rigged, whether it was an inconsistent call or a consistency issue, I strongly disagree. If it shouldn't be called late in the game, I strongly just. If it's a super soft, did he grab him? Did it affect the play? No, I'm going. Everyone should be going. He grabbed him. He did it twice. It affected the play. So it's not the same thing there. So I agree with the call there. Eagles barely get a shot at the end there. That didn't really matter. Tough one because the Eagles, there's nothing they could have done differently on offense, that's for sure. And like I said, I don't know if they could have done a whole lot differently on defense. What could you have done? Again, it's impossible to double up Kelsey when he's in line, and it's so hard. You can't do that. If you know for a fact, if you see something oh my God, I saw this play on tape. I know it, even if he's in line, put everybody on him, so, but then Mahomes is going to find somewhere else to go, so that's just how it is. So, but nothing else the Eagles could have done offensively. I guess one thing I thought A.J. Brown, there was a little bit of a gap where they weren't really, Smith was racking up some yards though, and Goddard was great. But there was just a little gap where it's no A.J. Brown. I think it's one of those guys you just get the ball to. Get him a screen pass. Give him a quick slant. Throw the ball up for grabs. We saw it. So, but it's so hard because they scored 35 points. They made the most out of every opportunity. So it's so hard to say that. I'm just saying perfect world here. But yeah, the Chiefs didn't have a whole lot of points going in the half. It didn't really surprise me that they scored as many points as they did because they're the Chiefs and what they can do. And even when they had the ball and they moved it in the first half, even though they didn't have a lot of points, they moved it really actually easier than the Eagles. The Eagles were moving it more easy. They were moving it easy, and they were moving it more chances, chewing more clock. That's their game. It was a beautiful thing. They had the most plays in a scoring drive in Super Bowl history too. And Hurts breaks the record for quarterback rushing yards in the Super Bowl too. So that's the tough part about the Eagles. But when the Chiefs actually did move the ball, they even when they didn't have that many points, they only had one offensive touchdown. They were moving it very easy, really easy. So it was not a surprise. But kind of going back to that, I guess that's when you say stuff like that out loud, it's a game the Eagles should. You got to find a way to win that game, especially Chiefs are a little beat up coming this game, and they end up being more healthier than you expected. But factoring that in, maybe that the Eagles are a little more complete. I mean, they don't have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. I think the 3 best players in this game are on the same team. I think it's Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones. I think those are the top 3 players on the field in this game, no matter what the stats were going into the game I'm talking about any given time. But yeah, the Eagles they played their game. I mean, they chewed the clock. They controlled the clock. They were moving the ball. They were scoring points. Like the Chiefs, the way they moved the ball did not match their score. And they kind of got a freebie. That was a big thing on the Hurts fumble. But so things kind of going the Eagles' way. Besides that was a big one. And then Mahomes only ended up. I actually didn't see the number. He was under 200 passing yards. Pacheco had 76 yards. Wow. But Mahomes rushing, that is. But Mahomes passing actually only had 182 yards. I mean, he was phenomenal. 21 for 27, 3 touchdowns, sacked 0 times. A lot of that's because of him. But Mahomes didn't do one of his patented 300, 400-yard games. He only had 182. And the Eagles still, if you would have said Mahomes is going to throw for 182, you'd say either the Eagles whomped them or the Chiefs whomped them, because they got up right away where they just ran the ball, ran the clock maybe. But neither of those things happened. So it's a game the Eagles should find a way to win. And the defense did let them down. And again, I kind of go back to I was very, very shocked at the people that were very confident, oddly confident, that the Eagles defense was going to lock things down, against the Chiefs. It's not really more so I'm surprised that people thought the Eagles defense. I'm not at all saying that. I'm surprised people thought the Eagles defense was good. Like, it definitely is good. More surprised they thought anybody can handle the Chiefs. And the Eagles, was the defense tested enough, especially recently? No. Last time they played anything close, it's really not that close as the Cowboys, and they gave it, like we talked about this. So I was a little surprised by that, and the defense did let them down. I was impressed with Hurts. Again, I talked about that. Clutch plays, 304 yards passing, 7 yards rushing. The fumble was tough. The fumble doesn't happen. The Eagles probably win this game, right? I think again, a huge moment. That was a huge moment. A huge moment was that second series for the Chiefs, like where it felt like it smelled. I don't know what it would smell like, but it smells like that was going to be an easy back-to-back 7-point drives. It seemed so simple to them. And they got ended up with 0 on that drive. I thought that was a big moment in the game. So you could say, I guess, if that didn't happen, Bucker did miss the kick as well. That's part of it. Or if the Hurts fumble didn't happen, pretty wild. It was a very entertaining game. A very, very entertaining game. So I was happy just with the explosive plays, and I wasn't thrilled with the defense because I predicted a shootout, so I kind of wanted a shootout. Shootout's a little more fun, but this was more than I thought. I had 31-27. This was more than I thought, so I wish there was a little more defense. It was weird, though, because there was some good defense. Nick Bolton was everywhere, some good defensive plays. I thought that, Chiefs DBs weren't great, but I thought on underneath throws, they were flying up to the ball to make hits. And sometimes they gave it up on third down still, but I like that. I don't like giving things up on third down, but the whole Chiefs defense was flying to the football, so I thought that was pretty big too. But yeah, big fan of Nick Bolton. I said that already. Was surprised if Valdes-Scantling didn't do anything. Had a big game last week, so that was his moment. Yeah, I think that wraps it up. Hopefully I covered everything there. Very exciting one here. We are on to the offseason. We've kind of been in the offseason. We have that content on the channel. Check it out, and definitely more to come. We will predict the next Super Bowl at a way early stage, or give like the top 10 team chances to win the Super Bowl, in my opinion. My Super Bowl takes beforehand have been pretty damn accurate, I'd say, recently. So we'll see what I come up with here. Still waiting on that last coaching hire for the Cardinals, which the Colts didn't make theirs official yet, but they're going to. It's Steichen. So we'll see if the Eagles lose both their coordinators too. So, yeah, we got you covered. Very, very important to follow that Twitter. Link pinned in the comments for that, or Discord as well. Link down there. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.